Warm welcome to a new episode. Today I have another guest for a conversation which I'm really looking forward to. We were planning to have this, I think, since 2 months. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sebastian, but finally, finally we could make it. And I'm glad also that we could do it today, because today it's the first time that I have a different background. So lucky for me.
Yeah, I don't have one. I'm sorry.
Your background is also very fine. So maybe a few words to you before I hand it over to you. So Sebastian is currently a customer success manager at Glacier. You will provide us a little bit more context in a few seconds what this really means and what Glacier is all about. And today we would like to tackle a few different topics. So first, in regards to studying abroad, what kind of importance or impact intrinsic motivation can have. And also when it comes to, basically dealing with, all these factors combined and why he's doing what he's doing. So this said, who are you, Sebastian? Why are we talking today?
Well, first off, thank you very much for the invitation. As I said, we've been trying very long, but the saying goes, good things take time. So just maybe a quick intro to what I'm doing now and who I am. You said it briefly, we'll be talking about my role at Glacier. It's a sustainability startup. I've been working for the past 2.5 years, and I've been part of it since the start. So actually, I was one of these. But actually, we will also be talking about, as you said, studying abroad, multicultural background. I myself am an Austrian Spaniard who's been living nearly 10 years in the UK, and I've only just come back 2 years ago to Vienna. So I think I would always call myself not an Austrian or a Spaniard. I would call myself a European, right? I have this European identity. And I'm very happy to be here and to talk about all these things with you.
Perfect. Yeah, and I think having the European mindset kind of is also very interesting. I mean, you could also say, okay, I'm Austrian, I'm Spanian, or I'm
British.
British. Thank you. I'm British, so it's really interesting, and this is also kind of a good intro because this shows also how you think. Basically, right? So what's your thinking behind everything and so on? And you also scratched it a little bit, but what drives you basically, but also what is it, what you're doing? Maybe you can give us a little bit more, context to that.
So you mean kind of what drives me, what motivates me throughout the day, and So I think it's very difficult to trickle it down to one thing, but basically I would say what motivates me is to challenge myself and to develop myself through everything that I do, be it in my professional life here at Glacier for now, or be it through experiences that I put myself in, like going abroad to a different country and culture, just being 11 years old back then. So it's really getting out of your comfort zone. So this is really what I find super, super interesting, because it's always this fine line between being in the comfort zone where you're happy and you feel comfortable, but you're not pushing yourself really hard because you have no challenge. And then the difference to that being completely underwater and not knowing what to do because you're just overwhelmed by the situation. So just finding the fine line where you are a little bit uncomfortable, but you know that you're able to handle the challenge, whatever it is. That's really what motivates me most of the time. So staying hungry, kind of this feeling of being hungry.
Yeah, if you would like to reference ServiceNow, stay hungry and humble. So that's be
right.
kind of good marketing here. Yeah. So in regards to personal development, what do you think is having your kind of approach, going out of your comfort zone as far as possible in order to still deliver or whatsoever? What do you think, what kind of importance does it have?
So you mean what importance, or like how do you put yourself into it? Because I think those are two different things. putting yourself in this challenging situation. I mean, for example, this is just something that I do in my private life. This has nothing to do with my professional career. For example, if I do invitations, I do parties, whatever, I will always try to make sure that I invite new people. So I tell my friends, because a lot of people are very strict about this, to say only my friends can come and no one else. And I'm always like, you know what, you can bring 5 other people. I don't care. As long as there's space and there's enough food and drinks for everyone, I don't mind. You can bring your entire family. And actually people start to appreciate this more and more when they come to my parties, because they see new people every single time. And it's just these small little things, surrounding yourself with a diverse group of people, getting out of your bubble. And I often say to myself, I don't think I live in a bubble, but actually I do. I live in a bubble in Vienna here, in the sustainability sector, from my own background. So just making sure that you get people from different backgrounds, be it from different universities who have studied other things, who come from other countries, who work in different fields, who have different passions, who like different food, whatever it is, as long as you can kind of challenge each other a little bit in the way of life that you're having. I think it makes it more interesting and you learn from one another. So this is how I do it in my private life, for example.
And in your professional life?
In my professional life, I'll always be aiming every single time a little bit higher. So, for example, obviously, we touched it briefly in your introduction. I'm a customer success manager now at Glacier, which means that I'm taking care of a very large portfolio of corporate clients mainly. And at first, it was always very daunting for me, I'm now 24, I'm still pretty young. Talking to the CEOs and these managers who have many, many years in experience in their fields, some even more experience in their career than I've ever lived on this planet. But that shouldn't kind of deter me from talking to them on a level that I make sure that I'm not putting myself underneath them. You know what I mean? So it's always knowing your strengths and knowing where you stand. But as I said, always aiming a little bit higher, talking to new people, going, for example, in my field, also for the bigger deals, making sure that we sell our clients even more products so they can do sustainability even better and more intense, which means engaging more people within the company. So it is these things that I do professionally, for example.
Yeah. Do you have an example for us in regards to the preparation? How did you prepare for a conversation with a CEO?
So most of the time, what I will do is I will look very, very closely at what the company is doing at all, because obviously CEO, the company, it's his own house. Like he knows everything about it, or most of the time he will. So if I just go in there briefly knowing what his company is doing, then that will make the situation very tricky for me to do anything at all. And it will not come across as very well prepared and professional. But most of the times I don't actually want to target them or approach them on maybe a business level, but maybe more on a personal one. Because I think a lot of these people, most of the time in my experience, they have a lot of interactions with people, but they tend to be with their own employees or externals who want something from them, which obviously I do as well. But it's about really being authentic as a person with them and not trying to make it clear that you want from them something in particular, so they don't get the impression you're trying to sell them something, right? And I think it's always better to be a little bit slower in the process of talking to them and maybe meeting up another time than trying to close everything in 20 minutes, because it just makes you feel very needy. And I think these kind of people, because they talk to so many, they have a really good nose for these needy people who just want to get something out of them. Yeah,
no, that's very interesting. And I mean, maybe one thing to add from my side, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end, it's about the humans, right? You sell it to humans and not to robots or whatsoever.
You're completely right. I mean, these people, they go home, they have food, they go to the supermarket, they have friends, they have family. They are just like us. They just have a different position and role within their career and within the company they work in. But in theory, they're just human as much as we are. So why not treat them as humans and not as a CEO of a multinational company, right? That's interesting, and that makes part of their personality, but it's not the only trait they have. So
yeah, and that's maybe another topic for a different episode. So coming back to the topic, maybe let us have a last perspective on intrinsic motivation, right? So we scratched it a little bit, but what does intrinsic motivation mean to you, and what importance would you give it in your life?
So I think intrinsic motivation, I would define it by what it's not. It's not this motivation that you get, for example, if you have a reward, for example, a financial reward for something. That's not intrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is also not if you want to gain maybe reputation or status from something, right? That's also not intrinsic motivation. So it's more a motivation that comes from within, that allows you to do certain things that may be for others very exhausting and tiring and challenging, but for you it comes so easy because you feel invested in it, whether you get something from it or not. It's like what you get from it normally, in my own intrinsic motivation, is joy. So this is what I call intrinsic motivation. Yeah, not having it attached to any external rewards that I think I might be getting by doing so.
Yeah. And in regards to the importance in your life, what would you say?
Ooh, very.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I think obviously because we work a lot with employees and for a lot of people, sustainability is a topic that is driven by intrinsic motivation, because a lot of the times, not exclusively, but a lot of the time, sustainability has something to do with intrinsic motivation. It's doing something about the planet and improving the lives of others. So it's not very economically rational most of the time to do something in this respect. But coming back to your question, this is also the reason why I'm working at Glacier and trying to improve the planet we're living on, or saving the planet we're living on. It's driven by intrinsic motivation and nothing else. Because if my motivation was, financial, then I wouldn't be working here. I wouldn't be working at a startup. I can tell you that I would be working maybe at a bank or a big corporates where I could be making thrice as much as money on a monthly basis.
So. Yeah. No, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that one. So you have studied abroad and lived also abroad. What did you expect from it, and did it turn out as you hoped?
Yeah, that's a good question. As I said before, I was very young, so I was 11 years old, just about. The reason, actually, maybe to start off with that, why I even moved to the UK was because I was failing school here in Austria, in Vienna, and that's, in my opinion, because the Austrian school system does a lot of things right, but also a lot of things wrong. And I'm a dyslexic, so I have troubles learning and concentrating. Sometimes I get numbers mixed up in words. So I take extra time to learn, which is totally fine. But here at this Austrian school, this was not taken into consideration at all. We were like 30 people in the classroom. The teacher was going super fast from one subject to the other, and I couldn't follow. And then on the other side, private life, my parents were getting divorced, so there was that as well. And then there came this decision, maybe it would be better if I changed school system. Yeah. And my mother had lived a very long time and worked in the UK, and the British school and university system is renowned for being very, very good. And I can second that now that I've been through both. Because the system there really plays on your strengths and not on your weaknesses. So in Austria, it's like saying you have a fish and they're trying to teach a fish how to climb a tree. Right? It doesn't make sense. You're not playing on its strengths. It can swim. Teach a monkey how to climb a tree, even better, but don't teach a fish that. It doesn't make sense. And that's what was happening to me here in Austria. I was failing English class, maths class, etc. And in the UK, what you can do is you can specialize very soon. So in my last 3 years of school, I only had 5 subjects because you can drop subjects like maths, English, science subjects like chemistry, physics, biology, because if I'm not already good by the age of 16 and I don't have any like intrinsic motivation to study a subject, why should I be forced to do it anyway? Because I will hate it. I will hate school. I will not like to go there. And this is what happens a lot of the time here in Austria. I have friends who are, actually him, Noah, you've met him, I think, before. He's absolutely talented when it comes to software and sciences and so on. And he was being tortured by having to study Spanish at school. And he was failing school just because of Spanish. Why? Because they were not playing on its strengths. Yeah. So this is what studying abroad really taught me, is that a lot of the time it's okay that you have your weaknesses, but just accept them. And rather than that, focus on your strengths more.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think I feel confident in also saying that the German system is quite similar to the Austrian one. Okay. So I'm wondering how it would be going in the UK to school. So, but maybe that's for another life.
I mean, it also has its flaws, of course, that every system has. But for me, and I've talked to a lot of people here in Austria, and I heard a lot of the times that they would have preferred a system where they could drop some of the subjects they're struggling with, which they have no interest in pursuing anyway in the future. Because it's not like no one in the UK knows how to calculate, right? Everyone has to do maths until they're 16. But then you don't have to start calculating the volume of the black hole anymore if you're not interested. That's for those people who want to, right?
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. Regarding a different thing, so now we've kind of touched base with intrinsic motivation and so on. So I'm curious, how did you get your job, and how does it fit into your longer term plans?
So actually, this is quite a funny story. I was doing, because aside from sustainability, I'm very interested into politics. So I studied international relations with economics at university in the UK. So I was doing this internship at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Austria, and as it's sometimes the case, not always, there was not a lot to do for me as an intern, and it just came to be that my superior was ill. I don't know what she had. I think she had a cough or something, and she didn't want to come to work, and so she didn't. But there I was, an intern with no job, with no project that I could work on. So I had the option of either just sitting there on my phone or going home, because no one would have checked anyway where I was. Or because I was like, this is actually a cool opportunity for me to learn. I stood up and I went to the first open door that I could find in the department. And I just went in there and said, hey, I'm the intern from next door. If I can do anything for you, just use me, please. I'm eager to work. And actually she did. And she said that there was a delegation of Qatari ministers coming, and they needed someone who was confident in English to write the minutes. So I was just there, writing the notes. And then this meeting was about a conference that would happen in Qatar in 2 months' time, and then called the Arab European Young Leaders Forum, bringing together the future leaders of the Arab and European world. Okay, this was a kind of a diplomatic conference. And then actually the Minister of Youth and Sports, he asked me how old I was, and I was like, yeah, I'm 18. And it's like, all right, perfect, you're coming with us. And they invited me. And when I was there in the Qatari desert in December, it was still like 40 degrees. It was super, super hot. There was this workshop led by what would be now my current boss, Andreas. And I just approached him after Googling up his company, which I found super interesting. I just approached him on the sun lounger where I was drinking his Coke, if I could come and work for him sometime. And so I did. And now I'm here 6 years later.
That's a really interesting story, but it also shows kind of the importance again, just to take the courage once and stand up, right?
Of course, yeah. It wasn't easy because it was a completely different culture. I had only once been outside of Europe because I was always traveling home and then back to the UK or to Spain to visit family. And a completely different setting. There was a lot of ministers and these millionaires and Arab entrepreneurs. It was super high level. And I didn't really quite know what I was doing there, but I went there because I was like, let's do it. Because if there's this chance, just take it. Yeah. And so I did. So this is what I would recommend everyone, just go for it.
Yeah. No, that's a really good recommendation. But I'm curious, how did you feel between all the people you just mentioned?
Actually, the first day I was quite anxious, but this took place over the course of a week, and I think I just lived with it because I was so shocked on so many levels, like culture shock, and then kind of business-wise as well, like the super successful people and graduates from Oxford and Cambridge, from the best universities of the world. And I hadn't even started my degree yet. So I don't know, I just went with it. And only afterwards, not even a month afterwards, I think like half a year afterwards, I started to kind of realize what kind of crazy situation I was back then. So it took me a time to reflect on it, really. And looking back even now, I think it's super ironic that my journey into sustainability, now working at Glacier, actually started in the country, Qatar, with the highest CO2 emissions per capita on the planet. So there is that, I guess.
Yeah, nothing to add on that one. You also mentioned it in the beginning already, kind of, but let us have a focus again on that one. So, I mean, you also just mentioned, right? So why did you start at Glacier? But more importantly, why are you still there?
So I'm still here for two reasons. So the first one is obviously intrinsic motivation, because I really have, I think, I have an inner calling. I think everyone has an inner calling, right? And my inner calling is kind of working in the field of sustainability. And I've only realized this over the past few months, actually. At first, I was like, I'm going to test this out and see how it goes. And it went very well. But I was still not 100% convinced that this is the kind of path that I want to take. And over the past few months, I've been reflecting a lot, and now I do. And for that reason, I will also stay here, because with sustainability, I think it's not just one transformation we're tackling, right? It's tackling so many other transformations as well, because on the one side, you have this, obviously you will know, you're in recruiting and so on in HR, the great resignation. So a lot of people are losing the motivation to go to work. And I think with sustainability, you bring in back this purpose, and you bring in back kind of this inner calling for a lot of people. And if you're able to combine sustainability with your job, which is what we try to do at Glacier, not trying to advertise it too much, then you're actually tackling two transformations at once, or two challenges: one of sustainability and the one of how the world of work is going to look like in a few years. And I'm sure you have a lot of insights as well on this, the kind of desires of particularly more younger people when they're looking for jobs now, how they are radically changing from being primarily driven by salary to more purpose-driven jobs.
Yeah. No, I mean, relatively, but one word to that. Purpose is really a very important and an impactful word. I think, as you've also mentioned, it's kind of the thing which will lead us moving forward. I mean, also when it comes, for example, in the tech industry with all the layoffs, right? It's not necessarily anymore that a person is changing job because there will be a higher salary. Now there are more factors than just that being considered, right? And one thing definitely is also the purpose conversation, I would say. So I'm definitely with you. Yeah. Maybe regarding the topic climate, right? So when it comes to your personal point of view on it, why does it? Yeah. Is it that much personally of interest for you, or sustainability?
You mean aside from my job?
Yeah.
Yes, and I will be very honest here. There's still a lot of room for improvement, and I've only really started to live sustainably, or even try to, for the past 2 years. So more or less the same time that I started working here at Glacier, and it has become for me more important, for not only for the reason, and this is obviously one of the main reasons, is because I want to stop climate change. And I know that even I myself, in the way I behave on a daily basis, can help that. It can contribute to climate action. But on the other side, I think that also a sustainable lifestyle is in general a better lifestyle for you, because it means less consumption. Yeah, I think we've just, or at least our parents, this is my own family, have become so accustomed to owning things and buying things. And actually I started, for example, this Christmas, I've only gifted, I think, 2 material things. So my parents actually got for me, instead of like a phone or anything different that I would have bought them a couple of years ago, I bought them a dinner with me. So I'm going to have time and so on. So I think it's more valuable to spend something, to spend money, for example, on things that give you real value, not just gadgets and cosmetics and whatever the hell in clothes that what you want to buy, maybe to impress others or to pretend like you're impressing yourself by owning these things. If you would look into my
memories, do last, right? Much more important than material things.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just thinking about it. And when I think about it, when I think about being old, I would rather.
Old?
Depends on the perspective. But when I'm older, let's say it that way, then I would say I would much rather think about the experience I've made. And time is the most valuable kind of thing, obviously, besides health and so on. But instead of remembering, I did get a new phone on Christmas 2019 or whatsoever.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a great book I could recommend. Actually, my Andreas gave it to me, my boss, a couple of years ago. It's called The Big Five for Life. And it's really about, I don't know if you use OKRs in your company, but it's kind of this objective-based planning, right? And you can also do it for your life. It's not, doesn't mean that you're like over planning your life, but like you have your 5 stars, northern stars that you work towards. And these are kind of your values and your goals in life that you want to achieve. And this doesn't mean that I want to drive a Lamborghini with the age of 25. This doesn't come into there. And there's a really nice story about at the end of your days, you will come into heaven or whatever the hell it is you're thinking. But actually it's a museum, and he describes it as a museum that you go in, and the museum is filled with pictures of memories that you made throughout your life. And as you said, I don't think one of the pictures will be the iPhone I got for my 18th birthday. This will not be in there, hopefully. Otherwise it will be very sad. And I think you just have to live it by that idea that it's a museum that you're building, and it's collecting memories with people and through adventures that you take, and not by buying things.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Maybe coming to the last part of our conversation, maybe let's have a little bit deeper look into your Glacier journey, or however you want to name it, right? Oh, yeah. So you started basically as an executive assistant at Glacier, right? So what were your tasks back then, and what were you measured against? I mean, what does an executive assistant of a just created startup do?
Yeah, so I think executive assistants across the world have different jobs and roles. I don't think they're always the same. In my case, it was basically shadowing the CEO, so my boss Andreas, in anything he does, and supporting him with whatever he does. So this ranges from doing market research. So I went with him and alone to a lot of companies to talk to them, to understand better where the pain points are to sustainability, why they're struggling with it. And alone together, I think we talked to nearly 200 companies within 1 year. And then on the other side, also working on the vision of our products and on the products itself. Then there's also this other task of HR. What people do we want to hire? If there's already people hired, I was always kind of a sparring partner for Andreas. And he would always ask me, do you think that this person should has a role in Glacier, or do you think that the journey for this person has ended because there's some things not working out for both sides? And I was also in that regard very involved in hiring and firing decisions. So yeah, I was like this. I was the shadow of the CEO, which meant I was doing everything that he has to do. And I did this for a year very, very intensively. And I think this is the 1 year where I learned so far the most. It was like a crash course into business for me.
It sounds like that.
Yeah. I could recommend it for everyone. And it may sound a bit silly, but for me, I've always had the ambition also sooner or later to start my own company, my own startup. And just being able to go through this entire process without having to be liable for anything, because I wasn't putting up a mortgage or a bank loan or whatever. I was just there. Okay. If the company would have failed, I would have been obviously very sad, but I was already with the thought that if it does, that's fine because I've learned something. But I didn't have this pressure or anxiety that maybe founders do have in the early stages of a startup.
Yeah, I would mention the word, at least I think, having the ability to be grateful, right? Yeah. So grateful or self-awareness in a way that, okay, I feel grateful for the opportunity I did get. Yep. And the self-awareness, what I learned. So I think, do you think those words are good mentioned here?
Definitely. So I think it's this gratefulness of the experiences that you have. And even where we talked about intrinsic motivation, even if I wasn't intrinsically motivated, but only by career choices and the amount of money that I may make in a few years' time, then I would have also chosen this path, because this was just the learning curve, in my opinion, that I did for myself was just so immense. I don't think I could have done it anywhere else. I couldn't have done it at university or at a different company. And yeah, so I was extremely grateful for the learning, and I still am. And actually just recently, not even recently, yesterday, I had a meeting with my boss and we talked about this. And I did tell him very honestly that I'm super interested in staying at Glacier. But now, since I've been in my role for 1.5 years, I want to be challenged again. I want to try new things. I will stay in the same role, but I want to expand it or do different things that I've not done so far, so that I can keep challenging myself. And I think we're both on the same boat here, same line.
So we will stay curious and we'll follow your path. I think there will be changes.
Yes. Do follow us in general, what we do at Glacier. It's super interesting, and hit me up if you need any help regarding sustainability. I'm here.
Perfect. Maybe one more thing regarding your journey as executive assistant, or basically the journey you just mentioned, right? So if I'm not mistaken, or correct me if I'm wrong, it was just or kind of around 1 year, right? So how did this time or this role or the experiences shaped you?
You mean from the executive assistant role, or from what I'm doing now, or in general?
Not really what you're doing now, but who you are today. So what kind of impact did it have on you personally?
Tremendous, I would say. So if you were to talk to me, I don't know, 5 years ago, I would have been, in many aspects very different, not in a bad way, I would say. For example, I was usually very introverted. So when I started to learn that I would have to talk to clients, I was breaking it. I was like, no, I can't do this, but I learned to handle it, and actually now I enjoy it. So I think that it has done a lot with my own confidence, and also it has been filling me not only with skills in that respect, but also with a lot of learnings that I can apply to myself. So I've developed myself professionally, but also personally, because this is something that, at least in our company, we strive for a lot, is this personal development thing. So it is encouraged that we even do courses, like personal development courses on things that have to do nothing related with the company. So if I wanted to study Russian, that the company would support it. So yeah, a bit of a long intertwined answer, but I hope you got something out of it.
Yeah, I think we did get the point. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So you also just mentioned it when you talked about your experience being an executive assistant at this stage of a company, right? So you've had the opportunity to look into HR, into marketing, into sales, etc. Why customer success manager? Why not HR marketing?
It's a very good question. So at the time, this was what we needed because we were selling our product and we needed someone to take care of our clients and to service them, to make sure that they understand what we do and they understand the service so they can have an impact with it, which is what we're all about. And then also making sure that they remain as a client, because always we have financial problems sometimes. So that's to avoid. And why customer success and why I still stay here? Because within the company, I could have chosen many other paths now that were bigger. Because I like working with people, not just within the team, because that means I could have been working in any department, but particularly with external people. I like the change of landscape every time I have every day. So whether it be meeting with someone from a corporate, meeting with someone who's also starting their own startup, be it meeting someone who's working in HR or in marketing. So actually for my job, I'm not saying that I understand all of the other jobs, but I'm more in touch with what other people face in their daily business lives. And that's super interesting for me. So I get an insight into a lot of fields. And this is why for now I want to stay here. It's getting this bigger picture of how companies work and how people actually work within these companies as human beings. So
yeah. No, I mean, this kind of also already answered my last question I have.
Okay.
After two and a half years at Glacier now, what kind of resume would you say? Would you give?
You mean like a rating, or
not necessarily a rating, because that's kind of one-sided, right? But if you would need to put it in few words, few sentences. I mean that you enjoy working at Glacier, I think everyone can see and hear, but maybe a little bit more context.
So more context to well, I think I also answered it partly in my previous answer there. If I would say so, if you were to ask me in 20 years, Sebastian, would you have done the same thing if you had the same chance again to start at Glacier? I would definitely do it again. I think it has been, for me at least, I don't see any other path that was open to me at the time that I could have chosen that has enriched my own life as much as Glacier has done. So I would put it this way. And it also, because obviously having worked now a couple of years in the startup, you have to be very sensitive to opportunities and to taking opportunities because otherwise they go away. And this is something that I've always tried to apply to my own life. And I think it started off basically by as I said, in the ministry, just seeing an opportunity that I could maybe try something else, and then seeing an opportunity with Andreas in Qatar in the desert, just talking up and saying, I can work for him. And this thought and this mentality has strengthened throughout my career at Glacier, and it's something that's super valuable, and I think that everyone should embrace, because a lot of the times I hear from some friends, they are not willing to take these opportunities. Like there's an opportunity right in front of them, but maybe they are afraid or they don't feel like they are capable of doing it. Hell, was I capable of doing any things that I've done so far? I don't think so. To be honest. I think you're always capable afterwards, most of the time. It's like retrospective. So yeah.
No, that's a good point.
My own motto that I live by, and I think it comes close with what I just said, is every single chance is like a galaxy of hope. So like you have this one chance, and if you take it, it could be like the biggest thing you've ever done in your life. But at the moment, right, when you're taking it, you don't even know. It just plays out in the end. And maybe when we talk again, it will have turned out even bigger or different than I was expecting it to be when I took a certain decision 6 years ago in an office here in Vienna in the ministry. So there's that as well.
So every chance is a galaxy of hope. Is it copyright or?
No, actually, it's not. It's not my quote. I think I heard it. It came to me because I saw it somewhere in a series. May not even have been Star Wars. I'm not sure. I've tried looking it up, but I think it's a very nice quote.
You should have just said, yes, it's for me.
Yes, it's for me. Okay, I take full credit. Copyrighted.
Perfect. But that was a very good point, and I think I can learn something from you, because the question you asked yourself was better than mine. So
okay. I'm glad.
Maybe for the end, I would like to hand it over to you for the last words.
Yeah. Well, maybe what I would find also interesting is to maybe reverse it for the last part and ask you why you're even talking to so many people, or what is your purpose behind what you are doing? Because I do in my personal professional life, I ask a lot of the times the intentions of other people, and in this case I want to ask you. So Christian, why are you doing what you're doing?
That's a very good question, and until now my heart rate was quite low. Why do I do what I do? So basically I would also answer it basically with intrinsic motivation. Otherwise, I think I wouldn't spend that much hours doing the podcast and everything which goes along with it. For basically nothing, right? So it's kind of similar to your motivation. But to answer your question in more detail, it's really interesting. It's kind of similar to what you've answered in regards to why you are in sales, right? Yeah. Talking with a lot of different people. I mean, I do it also in my recruiter job, but it's on a different level. It's much more intrinsic motivated, the conversations I have now with, for example, you or other people, than when I have conversations with candidates, right? Or people who are interested in ServiceNow or whatsoever. Yeah. And this is very interesting to dig deeper into their stories, right? Into their character, what were what was the thought process, or what kind of impact did this experience have on them in this situation, and so on. For example, this is also the reason why I asked you if you would have time and if you would be interested in having this conversation, right? Because I think, even before I prepared for our conversation, all the topics we've talked about today, those are very interesting. And I think those are also topics or points which are also interesting for other people who may be thinking, okay, what's a purpose, or what can be a purpose in my life, right? Is it salary, or is it intrinsic motivation, or is it sustainability? How is it, studying or living abroad, right? What's the pro, what's the con? I mean, you can also go much more deeper into that one, but we scratched a lot of topics, and that's very interesting. I don't know if it answers your question, but
it answers my question, and I think in that regard, we're both quite similar. And I would also say, because I touched upon it in one of the first questions, I think that HR and sustainability, so this because both topics are intertwined, I think these are two topics that will be shaping at least the world of business, in my perspective. I'm just saying that now, for the coming decade at least. So I think you yourself have a super interesting path ahead of you, just as I hope I will as well in my own field.
Yes, and this is perfectly the bridge over to my last sentence. We will follow you. We will watch you closely. So what's coming up next? And thank you for your time. It was really a pleasure. I'm glad that we could make it after 2 months. But as mentioned again, I have a background now, so all good. And, stay healthy, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you.
Perfect. Take care.
Bye-bye.